Welcome to A Seat at the Table, a podcast for public service professionals by public service professionals. This podcast series is presented by Statewide Learning Services, a division of the Office of Management and Enterprise Services. In this episode, your host, Tanisha Haynes, invites Disability Program Specialist Jacob Hill of the Oklahoma Office of Disability Concerns to discuss resiliency. So please, won't you take your seat at the table?
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on A Seat at the Table podcast. Today, we have a guest with us that is going to talk about their story, but mostly from the perspective of resilience and us being able to relate to another public servant, a state employee that we are excited to hear about. So, Jacob, welcome. Tell us about your history. You have a long history in leadership and public service. How did that get started? Share with us your journey.
Well, I was born and raised in Norman, Oklahoma, and I always played sports and everything else like that. And my dad was always a leader in my life, and so I always tried to mimic him. See what he trying to be the same guy he was. And but also I played sports and all the way through sixth grade through eighth grade until I graduated high school. I played football. And so, I was voted by my team and coaches to be the captain of the football team my senior year. And so I was always always liked to be, to lead people, but also it was an honor to be voted to be the captain of the football team there. But then I graduated high school, went to college and all that stuff. And then I started to work for Arvest Bank. And at Arvest Bank, I started out as a teller and all the boring stuff there. And then a job opening for the electronic loss prevention department, which was a brand new department for the bank, opened up, and I joined there, and I got to be one of 8 people that created a department for the entire Arvest Bank group, which is Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri. And so that was something I got to be part of, and ended up being a leader to help build that organization for Oklahoma, for the Arvest Bank. But playing football, I was helped build my leadership because our team, we weren't very good. We won 8 games in 3 years, and we were kind of the bad news bears of high school football. Norman North I played in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th year of the program. If you started at Norman High, you stayed at Norman High, and if you didn't, you played for Norman North. So that's how we began. So we were always kind of we weren't the cream of the crop, I guess. You could think we thought we were, but we weren't. So those kind of things. But so I dealt with we lost a lot of games, but we won some games, and we won. And it was great, and it was being around those friends, and we all made it through together. So I worked for the bank, and then I actually worked for my dad for about 12 years, off and on. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis during my junior year of college, and it completely changed my life. I didn't recognize who I was, but I also decided that I wasn't going to let this disability defeat me. And so I found out the best medicines and what I needed to do to get better and stuff like that. But also because of my disability with MS, I had to step away from work as I was on disability. It got some time to allow me to reevaluate my life. And I was very blessed to find out about this nonprofit called Neuro Resources, which was a nonprofit started by Teresa Tisdale in Oklahoma City. It was a full-service physical therapy clinic until the Medicaid cuts in 2008. And then it had to be charitable donations. It had to keep it alive, that kind of thing. But I started going there, and then the first time I went there, I was invited because I was actually in the hospital. And while I was in the hospital, somebody showed up with a wheelchair and a walker and a shower chair, and I really just wanted the shower chair because I was still walking and still moving around really good. And I was like, well, I don't need any of that. And they're like, well, yeah, you do. And then, by the way, this place has a free clinic on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I went to that free clinic at Neuro Resources, and I walked in the door, and I saw what would future be one of my best friends was sitting in the room, and he was very skinny. He was in a power chair, and I was still walking. And so I had one foot out the door. And as I was walking out the door, my lady grabbed me by the arm and pulled me in and said, "Let's go to work." And that lady happened to be the head of physical therapy teaching at Langston University. And so because she pulled me back in there, it started a 7-year relationship with Neuro Resources, and being around some of the best friends I've ever met in my life, which taught me leadership because we always had to fundraise. We were always moving forward and stuff like that. But I always felt like I could use my leadership to help others as well. And so otherwise, I would have never been involved with that. But a lady named Teresa Tisdale started Neuro Resources, and Teresa Tisdale changed my life. Connie Anderson was a volunteer there as well, and she changed my life. And they taught me that I saw the love that they gave other people with disabilities, and I happened to be one of them. And it changed who I was, and made me decide that I can do this. I can help lead people as well through disabilities. But my leadership came from the football, came from the bank. And then whenever, I had a rough patch of life when I was diagnosed with MS, because I had no idea what to do. There were so many changes in my body all of a sudden. I didn't know who I was. And but being part of Neuro Resources actually lifted me back up into where I am today.
That's a fantastic story so far, Jacob, and I thank you for sharing that with me. 2 points that I heard you say that I just want to stop and take a moment to recognize is that what you said is when you first was diagnosed, you didn't recognize who you were. And then going further, when you went to Neuro Resources and the love that you were shown, the connection that was made to the people there, to the volunteers, you said it changed who you were. And I just think that that's so fantastic when we talk about resilience, when we talk about leadership and just developing as people and public servants, understanding transformation is so key. And we'll talk about a little bit of that later on. But I want you to go further. And then what happened? How did you get into state employment? What did that journey look like for you to now be a state employee?
Well, when I was with Neuro Resources, I met Nico Gomez from the Healthcare Authority. He was helping us with some legislation. We actually created a legislation team at Neuro Resources. So that's one of my first with state Oklahoma, but also I was nominated to be on the Office of Disability Concerns Advisory Committee. And so I was approved. I was approved by the governor's office under Mary Fallin, and then I started on the advisory board for the Office of Disability Concerns, and I was on there for about 2 years, and there became a position with the Office of Disability Concerns, and I was like, I would like to apply for that. So Doug McMillan was he's my director of the Office of Disability Concerns. He helped me with the application process, and I think it was one or two that applied for it while I ended up getting the job. And so I thought that was a great way for me to get back in the workforce. So before that, I was working part-time at Dick's Sporting Goods, doing something that I had enjoyed doing with sports, and just working that way from you have a disability, am I still able to work? Am I still able to do things? But being part of that Neuro Resources, and then also in my 2 years that I enjoyed working with all the younger people, because now I was older than all the young college people. But yeah, but Neuro Resources definitely changed my life. And then having the honor of serving on the Citizens Advisory Board for Oklahoma City, for the Office of Disability Concerns, and being basically appointed by Governor Fallin. That was a huge boost in my, as far as I can now be a leader, I can help with the situation there. And then at the Office of Disability Concerns, there was something going on in Oklahoma City metro area, which includes Norman. Yeah, you all know what the metro area is, but Oklahoma City got one of 3 federal grants for for community policing. And so I was a representative for the Office of Disability Concerns. So I was the disability person on a committee with 5 police chiefs, 2 sheriffs, and a whole bunch of nonprofit organizations, which I never thought I would be involved with. And so all of a sudden I'm sitting at a table with all these chiefs and everything else. And I felt that I didn't belong there, but they made it very comfortable for me. But also, while I was there, I was seeing that there was a need in our community for there was issues with communication between people with disabilities and police departments. And so I started talking with the police departments, what kind of disability training do you guys do? And it was kind of non-existent. And so I went to my director, Doug McMillan, and I said, Doug, I want to do a CLEAT class for law enforcement. And he goes, do you really? I said, yeah. Doug was very supportive and all of a sudden starting to show me all these slides and all these things. And so we picked certain topics about effective communication with between people with disabilities and officers and the main thing there was maybe just taking that extra moment with the police officer, which is very important because they have to make very fast decisions, but also maybe that person's not drunk or they're not under the influence of drugs, but maybe they have a disability. Maybe they're slurring their speech because they're not drunk or high, but maybe they have a disability. So, and realizing that too, because I'll tell you, as a person with multiple sclerosis, it's kind of an inside joke. There's a card that you can get from the MS Society that says I'm not drunk or high. I slur my speech. I have MS. That you can print out and hand to police officers. I don't have one, but just doing that. But so we created a CLEAT class, and then Oklahoma City was very very nice that they sat down and because we had all these topics and he says, well, we don't need that. We don't need this. We need this. And so we developed a CLEAT class, which we've now taught to 3,500 police officers in the state of Oklahoma, and that includes some jail staff. Like Cleveland County wanted us to do their jail staff too, as well as their deputies. But so we've done Oklahoma City, Norman. We've done a lot of law enforcement around the state of Oklahoma, and it's kind of a one of a kind training that should be all over the country. And it's such an amazing thing that I got to be part of that.
Absolutely.
And that I could be, and that's just that's something that I'm very proud of, and I serve on the Citizens Advisory Board for the Oklahoma City Police Department right now, and I will actually, January 1, I will be the president of the Citizens, or the chairman of the Citizens Advisory Board for Oklahoma City Police Department.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
It's stuff I never thought I'd be involved in, but it's to recognize that there's a need, and then if I wouldn't have stepped up and took advantage of the fact that I had all those stakeholders as far as police chiefs and sheriffs around me to have advice on these trainings on what they needed, this training would have never been made.
Let me stop you there and ask you a question though about that, because you said something very interesting where you recognized that there was a need. You recognized there was a need, and then you went to your superior at the time and said, hey, I want to do this. I want to be able to fill this gap, and then took on the task of doing just that. What would you tell people who are listening to this podcast episode, who they see a need, they see something that, like, man, if this only existed, or if I could just do this thing, it would make such a difference. What would you tell people who have these thoughts and ideas, but maybe aren't acting on it, maybe don't have a support system, but definitely want to get these things out here? What type of advice would you give to those individuals?
To always look for opportunities to use that idea, and then to use the people that are around you. If you have a person that's a stakeholder or a friend of a stakeholder or a friend of a friend, any way you can get your training or your idea out to somebody, because that's a lot of people have to do that, but just don't give up. I always have that in the back of your mind. This is going to affect the community. This is going to be something that's going to be good, but just don't stop. Even though, because I tell you, we had a roadblock or two at the beginning of the CLEAT class, and honestly, it went from a 300-page CLEAT class that could have been 8 hours long without any pictures, any slides, just words, to Oklahoma City saying, we don't need all that, we need an hour. So we trained their 1,100 officers in 5 weeks, and so, which is a logistics issue because they have to, they have to schedule and they have to make sure there's coverage on the street and everything else. But I think don't ever give up. I would have never thought I would have ever thought in my life that I would be involved with the police department like I am now. I wanted to be an FBI agent when I was doing the fraud stuff at the bank. I was like, man, I wish I could arrest these people. But, can't do that with MS. But you can do a lot of things with MS, too.
You can do a lot of things.
you can still do a lot of things. And like I said, and a lot of it's just been lucky, too. It's a blessing that I could get a hold of somebody in the police department right now if I had an idea for training or something. And I talk with them about trainings, too. So, I mean, we've tried to develop some stuff as far as more community, because what PACT was community policing, and so that's how this CLEAT class started. So,
okay, that's fantastic, Jacob. I mean, one of the other things that you said that really struck me, and I don't want it to be missed by you all listening to us today, is that while he was there, so what you mentioned is being a part of the Citizens Advisory Board and being there with the 5 police chiefs and the sheriffs, and that you didn't feel like you belonged there. And how many of us can relate to that experience, right? Where you have the willingness, you have the idea, you have the desire, but then at the table that these things need to be presented to, you don't quite feel like you belong there. And it sounds like to me that you just pushed through that you said, okay, I might not, but I'm going to be here because your goal, the reason for you being there was more important. And that's what I heard from your story, talking about just that right there. And I think that's such a valuable insight to give to others.
Well, I'll tell you that Chief City, who was the police chief in Oklahoma City for 15 years, he kind of made me feel more comfortable about things. He kind of sat down with me and then introduced me to people, because when you're there, I use a scooter, guys. I use a scooter. If you've been in any of my classes, I use a scooter. But to go in there, then all of a sudden you have all these police chiefs and stuff talking to each other, and then you're like, I don't belong here, but you do, and so. Because actually, right before I was doing the training, we had a big event to announce the Police and Community Trust, and we did that at the Supreme Court of Oklahoma. And in fact, they all took a picture, and I didn't want to be in the picture because I was in my scooter. And Chief City's like, well, we'll hold you up here. And so they wanted me to come out there, and Chief City's like, you get out here. So. But I had a really good relationship with Chief City, and then next thing that's how we talked about developing the CLEAT class. Then he got me with Lieutenant Stryker, and it's just it's a lot of luck, but it's also using the resources that are in front of you. If I wouldn't have done the CLEAT class, there may be more issues, more people with disabilities that have been not taken care of, more people with mental health, which is a big issue. Being a part of those police officers, and also when you're in a room with 60 police officers, you're like, well, I get to teach these guys something. They know everything, right? And that's I love police officers, and it takes swagger to be a police officer, and so all of a sudden I'm the guy that's leading the class in front of them, man. But after I did that a few times, it was no big deal. I just go in there, let's get class started. Who wants to pass these out? So, but as far as for people, just don't give up. Use the opportunities. So blessed, and like I said, I get to do some things I never thought I'd get to be able to do, and I'm blessed that I'm part of them. So.
It does. Thank you so much. Let's go back to talking about what you do for the state of Oklahoma now. So talk about your current position and what role you play.
Well, I am a disability program specialist for state at the Office of Disability Concerns. We're a very small state agency, and what we do is people can call us. I actually work from home now, so does all the other specialists. We have a small office now, but people used to be able to walk into our office when we were at Shepherd Ball, and we could sit down with them and try to guide them to resources, maybe help them solve a problem if they had an issue of some sort. And we do that I do that from my home now. But, what we do is we call and we listen to people. And since I've gone through Social Security Disability, since I've gone through the process of filing for Section 8, I've gone through all those processes. I can help guide people at Social Security Disability. I have a back door for that. I can guide them to some resources, but also I actually have a very large responsibility if somebody tells me something that I think that they are in a dangerous situation or they're thinking about suicide, I have to intervene whether they know it or not. They're going to get visited by somebody. And so I do that. That doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it does. Otherwise, people call us with the simplest questions as far as like, do you know of how do you file for Social Security disability? What's the best way to do that? I have an easier way for them to do that because I've gone through the process. But we have to just help guide people through whatever issue there are. And we deal with a lot of people that have newly diagnosed. They don't know what the next step is. And then I can help them with that step. I can give them, I try to give them at least 3 resources or 3 steps to do to help themselves get in there. And I've been an advocate for now 12 years in the disability community and 6 professionally through the Office of Disability Concerns. But we do a lot of things. We do disability trainings as well. We do ADA audits. Don't upset me. I'll go audit your town's ballpark just for fun. Although we don't have any enforcement because Oklahoma has not acknowledged the ADA through legislation yet. Otherwise, we could make it a little faster. We can definitely, do things like that. But I mean, it's just, but we do the ADA stuff. People call us about ramps and doorways and all those things, and we can get them the resources. I can get them flyers. I can give them pictures. I can just help them through situations. So, and I've helped indirectly help probably 10,000 through the CLEAT class, or more than that, but just through just helping people. That's what we do. I just be available the entire time I'm here. I have to make sure that I'm available on the phone.
What's something that we all can do to be of more help and support to the community that you serve, specifically from the place of inclusive environments, and not just work environments, but to be more inclusive for those with disabilities?
There's actually there is kind of an attitude sometimes. We're afraid of what we don't know. And I'll tell you this, I was afraid of my friend that was in the power chair when I walked into Neuro Resources, and I was leaving as the lady grabbed me by the arm. So I've done it too. But I just make sure that you treat everybody as a person first, like be people first, and just always be kind and be nice. And if somebody needs help with the door, if you can, help them. But also just know that there's a community that's almost 1 in 5 has a disability now, whether it's mental illness, physical, or any other kind of disabilities that's out there. It's real, and that's just part of our community. And it's just always just be aware that it's out there. And we all get these cool parking places, right? Don't use handicap spots if you don't need them, please, because somebody may need them, and they may not look like they need them. They may, like I was 26 or 7 when I got my first handicap placard. You know how many bad looks I got when I pulled up in my van? People would look at me like, "What's this young guy? He must have his grandma or grandpa placard." And then I'm like, just wait just one moment, and then I'd get out of my van really slowly, and then I'd get my walker out, and then I was like, "There you go." So, but also just don't, some disabilities also are invisible. Somebody may have a heart issue. Some people may have a mental issue or a cognitive issue. And so it's just try not to judge, be judgmental. But I mean, we're all people, people first, treat everybody with respect. And, sometimes I need help sometimes too. And I've also learned that if someone wants to hold the door for you, I'll let them do it. Even though I can open the door for myself, but if I tell them no, they may not open for the next person because they were going to do a nice thing, and then all of a sudden I don't. So that's one thing I do is always make sure I thank people who are helping people, holding doors, and simple things like that as well. But I just one thing we could do is just make sure businesses are accessible. Most of the large chains have the handicap ramps, have the placards, have the fire alarms for people who are deaf, with the flashing lights. Just, there's be a more inclusive society. And Oklahoma City is doing a good job, and Norman's doing better, and Edmond's doing better. Just realize that there's that community out there, and we're just people just like you. We just have a little bit of setback. But we're moving forward. We want the same things as you guys. We want to have family. We have friends. We want to have jobs. We want to have a great life just like everybody else. We just have a little bit of a setback. I mean, that's just, I want people to know that, just because the person has a disability does not mean that they are not less of a person. People are people. So
I like that. People are people and people first. Those are a couple things that I'll definitely take away from this conversation. You mentioned setbacks, and we're here to talk about resilience today. So you can't have resilience without setbacks. But one of the ones that you spoke of earlier in our conversation is your football team, your high school football team, and the level of success that your team had, or how we evaluate success from wins and losses. But I really appreciate, and this is conversation that we had prior to recording, how you share your experience or how you talk about your experience on that football team. Talk to us a little bit more about what that looked like and what you learned from essentially not being on a winning team.
Well, first off, we were the third, fourth, and fifth year of the program. We were the leftovers from Norman High, although I came in after that. But, it's just there was an attitude there. But you know what? Those are some of the best friends I've ever had in my life, was being on that team, going up, showing the effort and that commitment. Because when you play high school sports, it's an 11-month commitment. You're either doing off-season running, lifting, and all those things as well. But I think we won 3 games. We played freshman ball in 6A, and then we won 3 games my sophomore year, and then we won 1 game my junior year, and then we won a school record at that time, 4 games my senior year. I'm telling you, I enjoyed it. That was just being around my friends, my family. They're my family to this day. And sometimes you have teammates that don't play ever, but they came to practice just like you. They worked just as hard, but they may not have the talent, but they're still part of the team. And I was grateful. I started 3 different positions I was a different position every year. I wasn't the biggest guy. I was a 5'7" linebacker, a 5'7" slot receiver. I was a 5'7", and we actually they would actually boost our weights and heights on our depth chart just to make us look a little better than we were. But I wasn't the biggest guy. I wasn't the strongest guy, but I was happy to be there and glad to be on the team. And I'm so glad I had that opportunity to get the most votes from my fellow teammates and coaches to be captain. And just that was just an honor. So all the hard work I put in, that was just such a great thing. But also, you learn from losing that you don't want to lose again, and you want to try to get better. And so those kind of things. We lost 2-0 to Mustang, and we scored the 2 points for them. Our deep snapper got hurt, and so the new guy came in and threw it over the punter's head, and we scored the 2 points for him, and we lost 2-0. The next week, we came back with a new attitude, a new offense, changed everything, and we beat the number 1 team in the state at that time.
New attitude and new offense changed everything.
Yeah, well, and they also had no tape on the new offense. They played for the state champion. It was Putnam City North, and they had this young quarterback named Sam Bradford that they pulled up as a freshman to be their quarterback. So, and I'll tell you this, 2 guys that never had an interception in their life had an interception against the future Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, Sam Bradford, that night. 2 quarterbacks. Yep, that they did. And so they, it's having the opportunity, and just being positive and hard work pays off. So we ended up beating them by 3 points. But that was after losing by 2 points, we had a change of attitude, and we ran a lot. But we learned a new offense, and and it was that was a great moment for us, and that was very exciting. So that it felt like that all the work that we put in just to be the number 1 team in the state at that time was the biggest deal. That was we couldn't believe it. So we were the underdog, like out of the 36 6A teams or whatever it is. We were probably 33. We beat the number 1 team in the state.
That's fantastic.
The resilience pays off sometimes, and it did.
That's definitely a point that I want to just stay on for a little while, because as public servants, I think sometimes we feel like the underdog. We feel like we are losing or on a losing team, or maybe not making the impact that we want to have. And I just want us to take away, first off, as a fellow public servant, the state employee of the state of Oklahoma, we are making an impact, we are making a difference, and we are not on a losing team. But sometimes it does. It feels like it. It's challenging. We are tasked often with doing more with less, or we're having to just kind of overcome some very challenging things. But we do it for the love of serving the citizens in whatever public entity that we are serving. The idea that says just keep showing up, the idea that says be committed, and when you said, having a new attitude and a new offense, I just want to land on those things as it relates to public service, because I can see how we can transfer those thoughts into what we do here. I think sometimes we can get stuck thinking about the way that we do things and saying, like, this is how we do it, or not being able to sometimes come up with a different thing, but not taking the challenges and the losses as just that, but kind of like what you said, you learn from losing. And so being able to move forward with it with a new attitude and a new offense. How are we going to address this? We failed in this situation. How are we going to address it moving forward? We've talked in other podcast episodes about making it safe and making space for failure, because again, we're here to talk about resilience, and that's a necessary part of becoming resilient is experiencing a failure. Are there any things that you can share, or any other experiences that you might have had when it came to things that didn't quite go so well, but that you were able to learn from and grow in as it relates to your career, not just in public service, but even the volunteer organizations that you worked in or participated in, and other leadership roles that you've had?
Well, that's a good question. I'm sure I've had several. Off the top of my head, doing the job I do, this is what's so important about what we do as state employees. You may think that we're just doing the same thing. We're a conveyor line, blah, blah, blah. No, we are public servants, and we help people. And, when you think you don't monitor, if we didn't have, it's like I said, like there's guys that were on my football team. They never played it down, but they were there they were at every practice. They were with us there the entire time, but they stuck there. So sometimes, you could feel like that you're not making a difference, at answering telephones. Well, if you didn't answer that telephone, how are they going to get help?
Right.
If you're the one that just does the simplest job, and they feel like they don't do anything well, but if you're not there, they're missing a link in the team that's doing something poorly to keep that agency going.
Absolutely.
But like a time, I like to think what I do is I give people resources to self-advocate to help themselves. Mm-hmm. I learned real fast in this job that I'm not as efficient when I'm trying to make these calls for everybody else. When people call me, I'm going to give them the tools to succeed. I'm going to give them the phone numbers. I'm going to give them the game. I like to call them game plans. I would call this department first, and then if this doesn't work, call this department. Here's 3 options. Call me back if you don't need it. And then if I don't get that call back, I know I have succeeded. Mm-hmm. But there's been a time that I got one of those phone calls with one of those. One of those situations you just can't believe that a person's in this kind of situation. And then I had to say, there's nothing I can do for you. I don't have any resources for that. I have no advice about that. I've had that happen a couple of times to where someone was in a situation, and it weighs down on you, but, you have to step up and realize that I've helped all these other people. But I think that, we sometimes we have jobs that we think we don't matter. Well, but if you're not there, if you're part of that team and you're not doing what you're supposed to do, it's going to cause somebody else to have to do work, and you're going to miss an opportunity to help somebody. So, but I've had an issue where somebody has called, and then I felt horrible because it was a very rare issue that they were calling about. And I was not able to help them, and it weighs down on you. But you have to wait for the next call, the next person call. And some days I get 5 or 6 calls, some days I get 1 or 0. But you're just always being available. Always make sure you show up, be part of the team, and And being a part of the athletics, and as a child, I played basketball, baseball, football, everything I could. But being a part of that team, I recommend it. Whether you play sports now but you're on a team, and you just the resiliency just to keep showing up and being there is very important.
Definitely.
But if there's a setback, if you get chewed out, I've been chewed out before. Don't let that stop the drive to help others.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get sometimes people that may make you feel like that's, oh my goodness, I better quit today, or I better go home. No, you just keep going, you keep moving forward. So, and I've had situations where it has weighed on my mind all night. People who call, and then if you mention the word suicide with me, you're going to get visited. And I probably never hear from them again, so I don't know what the outcome of that was, or those situations. But I think as long as we keep just showing up and doing our job, and just know that you're making a difference for something. Yeah. And ODOT, you guys are keeping transportation going. You make it possible for people to get from one to feed their family, to have jobs, to do all those things. Department of Human Services, you're helping people with resources to help them with food stamps and to live, to eat, and other many things. People call with children with developmental disabilities. I have a niece with a developmental disability, and it's it's just amazing the resources that are out there to help people with that too. I mean, it's just but if you think you're not making a difference, well, you're there. You are making a difference. You're part of a team. You're doing something, because if you're not doing it, somebody else has to. Somebody has to get that done. So I mean, it's just like those. I love those guys that were on my football team. They're my brothers to this day. Whenever I see them, they don't call me captain anymore. I don't want that at all. But the fact that we spent that time together, and that's saying, like, when you're in your office team, that's your family. That's your football team. That's your whatever it is to you.
Right.
But to always push forward to see what you can do. Do that little extra to help, and just always, and if somebody needs somebody, you may need to wait just a little bit in the cold to hold that door for that person that needs help in the door.
I like that you're saying that, because it's definitely combining a couple of things that you said as relates to being on a team. So definitely as the individual. So for me, just keep showing up. Wake up every day with the mindset that I want to make a difference, that I want to come and do something that enhances the lives of others. And for me not to give up, or for me not to get discouraged about the hardships. But then also, as a teammate, I think about what you said earlier on, where you walked into that building and you were about to turn around. This experience that transformed your life, you almost missed it for whatever reason. You were about to turn around and walk out the door, and someone grabs your arm and says, hey, come back in, let's go get to work. And the difference that made. So what I hear in that is not just for me as a teammate to make sure that I'm okay, but then for me also to pay attention to when I need to be the one that reaches out and grabs the arm of that person and says, no, you're welcome here. You're safe here. You belong here. And so seeing that twofold, I'm definitely hearing that from your story, because it's not just about my resilience and my ability to function on the team, but what also am I doing to contribute to others' resilience, or being that support that they might need as well.
Right. Well, and it's just like I said, if she didn't pull me in that room, I probably wouldn't have come back.
Right.
And and I'm horrible with names, but she pulled me in there, and she worked me out hard. I got introduced to people, and then I came back the next week, and 7 years later, the clinic's gone now just because of no more funding, and we all have different paths in life and stuff. But that place, when she grabbed me by the arm and said, "Get back in here, let's go to work." And I needed that, because if I got in that car, I probably wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
And then, and so, and that's, and also one thing I like to do, in my apartment complex, I wave at everybody. I smile. I try to smile and wave at everybody, even though I don't know them. But you know what? it makes them feel better when they weigh back, or that they're being noticed. That yeah, people see me too. But it's just I agree. If she didn't grab me by the arm, odds are I wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
But thank God she did, because then I got to meet Teresa Tisdale. Teresa Tisdale changed my life, and she is family to me to this day. And Teresa Tisdale, Connie Anderson, those two ladies, and then Teresa's mom, who always had a joke. Oh God, she had it, and she had to hide it from Teresa too. She'd wait till Teresa walked out of the room, and then she'd get all the guys and gals around her and give us the joke. But if Teresa's mom wasn't there, we wouldn't have had the laughter. We wouldn't have had that extra help in the clinic. And it's just always. It's hard to think that, am I making a difference? Well, you are. Believe it or not, you're doing something to help somebody. Because of somebody's doing payroll, I'm getting paid. That's a good thing. But it's just, if you think you're not part of the issue, you are. You have a job. You work for the state. You're helping the state run. You're helping. I'm helping the disability community. And through talking today, I hope some of you guys like this. And a lot of people don't believe all my stories, because I have a lot of them. In fact, I have a girlfriend that tells me, she's a good sport. And I'm like, I was like, you don't believe these, do you? Anyway, it's one of those. Anyway, so it's just, we'll see. But it's just always look for an opportunity, I guess. And honestly, when I was sports related disability, I didn't know who I was. When I was being diagnosed, I was just showing up to college, not studying, usually not with my book. I was just there.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I was diagnosed and I was still on medication, that changed everything for me. So I mean, it's just. But also that happened to me at such a young age, but I didn't have it in me to give up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't. I don't even. I think about what I get to do today. I'm like, how did I get involved in this? How am I going to be the president of the Citizen Advisory Board for Oakland City Police Department? How did all this happen? Well, it's because of that lady that grabbed me by the arm that one day at Neuro Resources, and then because Teresa Tisdale, she showed me what it was like to help people that were in need. They were helping people. They had to have help using the bathroom in their chair, or whatever, or getting them the right piece of equipment. Neuro Resources was donated around 150,000 pieces of equipment over the 10 years or the 15 years it was there. We gave. I think we gave out about 100,000 pieces of equipment, whether it be a catheter, wheelchair, sometimes vehicles, to people, no cost, no charge. But all those little things, changed somebody's life, made their life better. And so I'm very fond looking back on Neuro Resources and how those guys they were part of my family, and I got to see people that were newly diagnosed who had just been shot. I have friends who have been shot and paralyzed. I have friends that have been in car accidents and paralyzed. And how blessed am I that I'm still independent and I can move around. And so I feel it's just within me to continue to move forward to help people. And I'm grateful that you guys allowed me to speak today too. So anyway.
We're definitely glad to have you. I really like so much of what you've shared. There's one thing that you said where you're like, there's just a lot of luck. And personally, I don't believe in luck. I know that there's a lot of people who do, and that's not the conversation. But I think that what I hear isn't necessarily luck, but just like you said, a person that just chose to not give up. And because you choose to not give up, every day is another opportunity for something new to happen. And I just want to take this opportunity for anyone that's listening and hearing Jacob's story, and you can hear definitely, Jacob, so many of the things that happened. My favorite part absolutely is you were about to walk out and then that person grabbed your hand and it really transformed your life. And for those of us who might be listening, thinking back on some experiences that we have that maybe we should have taken, how the should have, could have, would have kind of come and try to take over us. But as long as we keep going, like if we keep waking up and keep making the decision just that whatever today is, I'm going to do the best that I can and be seeking opportunities to make a difference in what matters to us, then we'll find those opportunities. And it doesn't always mean that you're going to end up being the president of something or maybe like, finding new job opportunities, but it can always mean that you're going to make a positive difference in someone else's life. And you never know how the smallest thing that you think you're contributing could make a big difference for someone else. And I definitely hear a lot of that in what you're sharing with us, Jacob. And so I appreciate that information and you coming to share your story. What would you say is the key or some of the things that not just your customers or the citizens that you serve, but just period for 2020 and beyond that people need to be resilient? What are some of the key needs that we need in order to have a level of resilience to move forward?
One thing I always ask people, and it trips them up because I say, is there anything in your life that brings you joy? Because that's something I ask people when I'm talking on the phone, especially if they seem like they're down and stuff. I was like, what brings you joy? Like music and sports brings me joy. Mm-hmm. My church brings me joy. I think people should always find the things that make them joy, give them joy in life, and then keep it around them. And I also tell people I try to keep the negative out. One thing I did when I was diagnosed with MS, I all of a sudden I didn't want to hear about all this negative stuff, So I mean, and I lost some friends over that because I didn't want to hear because they were the negative Nancy guy or whatever. And but I mean, I think that just but finding that thing that brings you joy, and it may not be at work, but it may be in your life, but it's okay to have a little bit of time in your life to have some joy. And I know it's a fast-paced society and everything else, but it's important that you do something for yourself. And maybe there's a band you like, or a music, or a movie, or something, or a family member, or a friend that you like to see, or if you like to golf, if you like to do these things, do those. But also just you need to do something for yourself every once in a while. And I know. It's hard to say that for a mother of four or something. And I have no children, by the way. So that's why I'm not saying that's a blessing. That would have been more difficult on me if I had children and then the disability. And it happens every day. People with children have a disability now. There are a life event that causes those things. But I think that one thing you can do for yourself, and it may be getting a Coke from Sonic, or that little bit of a piece of candy that you like, just something that brings you joy, and just to find that thing in life, and then always have that there as something to, if you're down, go back to that thing that brings you joy, that person, that thing, that movie, that whatever. I know that, I love music, and that's just I have playlists for different days, and I mean, just music brings me joy. People bring me joy, and always just treat yourself with joy if you don't mind. So, yeah,
definitely. That's good insight, good feedback. So we talked earlier, and in asking you about resilience and just some of the things that you found to be valuable, not just for yourself, but maybe other people with disability. Some of the responses that you gave were resource, referrals, definitely an ear to hear, someone to listen to them and hear them out, some advocacy, their ability to learn autonomy, hope, and empathy. Is there anything that you want to add to that list of things that we need to make sure that we're providing, not just for those with disabilities, but people, period?
Well, sometimes people just need somebody's ear to hear them. I mean, that's a lot of things. People call me just to talk sometimes, and and I enjoy the conversation as much as they do. And I had to charge my headset again. I'm sorry, Thomas. if there's a buzz now, but just be open to hear somebody talk. Maybe there's a person that you don't necessarily talk to. Maybe open up, just talk with them, or I guess if you could repeat that, I'm sorry.
Sure, no problem. So when we're talking about creating resilience for others, specifically when talking about those with disabilities, you mentioned some of the things that is needed for them to assist in them being resilient is resource. So making sure that the resources are available. You guys, sounds like you guys do a fantastic job in making sure that the resources that are available are communicated in the ear of service to those who call, along with referrals and ear to hear. So what you just said, which is that, you can listen to them. Sometimes people just need somebody to listen to and for them to feel heard and validated or valued in whatever it is that they're going through. Advocacy, to learn autonomy, giving the ability for that, hope, as well as empathy. Are there any other things that you would add as to what could contribute to assisting in the resiliency of others, especially those in the disability community?
Well, communication is definitely an issue, as something we all need to work on better. Sometimes we're such a fast-paced society. Mm-hmm. Maybe take that extra time to hear somebody talk about what they want to do or what their future plans are, or what's the need in their life. Maybe you have an extra sofa or something that you can donate to somebody, or just always treating everybody with respect. Like I said, I wave at everybody in my apartment complex because they're less likely to not like me after. If I wave at them, they'll wave back, and hopefully that brightens their day up, especially if they felt like nobody saw them that day. But always just be flexible,
right?
To where you could be available, if you can be. Like I said, we're all busy. We all have things on our heads. We have something we're always worrying about. And, and it seems like life is going so fast right now, although COVID shut that down. But I think it's just, and that's caused a lot of, COVID is, and it's going to make us stronger as a people going through this deal here. It's, always be available as far as to listen to somebody, and then sometimes I have friends in the military that have PTSD. You know what I do when they call? Let them talk.
Listen, absolutely.
Let them talk, and it may be the wildest things you've ever heard in your life, but you know what? You gave them someone to listen to. I have a friend that I played football with, and anyway, but I gave him my phone number one day. And I said, call me. And he says, you don't know what a difference that made. Mm-hmm. He says, because I knew I could call you if I needed to. He never called, but he's still my friend, and we talk now. And he's in a better spot in life too. But he went through the PTSD thing in the military, and people have PTSD in everyday in life. They lose a loved one, have a friend come down with a disease or an illness, or all these things that come up and change our lives. Like I would probably be working for a bank today. How boring would that be? That would be very
no
boring.
Offense for those of you who work at a bank.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I wouldn't have got to do the things. I probably would have made more money, but if I was still with Arvest Bank, but I wouldn't have been able to, without my disability, I would not be serving on the boards. I wouldn't have been part of this training for law enforcement officers. Mm-hmm. And if like Oklahoma City has 1,100 officers, and I think about 500 to 600 of them are on the street. But if one of those officers takes the time to notice a disability and helps them with a resource, man, it's worth it. Out of 1,000 police officers, if one helps one person with a disability, then our training was worth it. And I'm not saying everybody needs to go make a training or anything like that, but like I said, I'm lucky. I'm so lucky. I can't. All the stuff I'm involved with, it makes me tired. Sometimes I'm like, well, but but I'm so lucky, and I'm grateful that I have a job right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're all very thankful that we work for the state. For most of us, have not been, has not had to not have a paycheck during this crisis, and but also it's just be thankful for what's around you. Be grateful for everything, and like I had wonderful parents. I have a wonderful brother. I have a wonderful family. I've had so many mentors in my life that I look back on. I'm like, wow. I mean, it's just, and I'm thankful for that. And I'm not bragging. I've just been very blessed, and it's helped me through my disability. That's for sure.
Definitely.
It's just knowing that I have those people I can call and talk to, where they can, help me in a bind, or go get, give
and
me a
in
jump.
turn,
That's right. So I mean, it's just, and I don't know if that answers that question.
It does. It does. It absolutely does. And in turn, you provide that same thing for others.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it's just, and I hope all this helps. And I do slur my speech a little bit too. Did I hear that? Ha. Anyway.
That is perfectly fine, Jacob. It has been such a pleasure having this opportunity to hear your story, to present it to our listening audience. We hope that you all enjoyed listening to and hearing from Jacob as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Jacob, tell us first, what's a call to action? What would you say? You have a captive audience here of people who are listening to you. What's a call to action you would give to send out to other public servants across the state of Oklahoma, or anyone listening to us?
Keep showing up.
Keep showing up. I love it. That's absolutely true.
Stay positive. I had Miss Swisher was one of my favorite teachers in high school. And she always had this saying, like, hug your parents, do this. She always had this something, but like, it was always like, take care of yourself, hug a friend. But it's important that we just continue on and just stay positive, keep showing up. You're making a difference. You're making a difference by showing up.
Definitely.
So I mean, if you don't show up, who's going to put the rock salt on the road? Who's going to keep the power on? Who's going to, it takes a community to run everything, and everybody's one piece of that community, whether they believe so or not, but you're part of the community, and keep showing up. So,
okay. Jacob, how can people get a hold of you? They want to contact you, reach out, maybe hear some of your training. Just get to know Jacob a little bit more. What's some contact information you have for us?
Well, I can give you my direct line. I don't know. No.
I don't know about that. But...
No. I know. That's kind of a joke. No, you can go to the Office of Disability Concerns website. And my boss, Doug McMillan, has made a wonderful website with a whole bunch of resources, a lot of stuff that you may not even need to call us about. But like if you want to know the slope on a ramp and that kind of stuff, I mean, we got it, but also it has all kinds of resources, a lot of information. There's jobs for people with disabilities on that website as well. But just if you Google Office of Disability Concerns we're the number 3 hit. For people put in Social Security in Google, we get called a lot for Social Security disability, but I'm able to help people with that as well. So, but you can contact me through the website as well, Office of Disability Concerns, and it's odc.ok.gov, and it's odc.ok.gov is our website, is our email, is our website. And then through there, you can find the emails and contact information as well. So,
okay.
Yep. And also, I do a disability etiquette training. Sign up for it. I make disabilities fun, guys. You'll learn about disabilities, the ADA briefly, and then we'll talk about individual disabilities. Now that we're doing everything online, we don't get to show all our fun videos, but it's good information. One in 5 has a disability in this country, and it's about 20% of the population. So. It's odds are you have a friend or family member with a disability. So
definitely,
disability awareness is very important. I appreciate it, guys.
Jacob, thank you so much for being here. Man, it's been a pleasure, definitely.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us. Today's podcast is sponsored by the Certified Public Manager Program, a nationally accredited, cohort-based leadership program that transforms public service professionals within their management careers. To find out more, visit learn.ok.gov. Until next time, keep on learning.